Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I hope your Shabbos preparations are going well. Special Shabbos this week. Two Torah portions, Parshat Chazak. We finished the book of Numbers and begin Deuteronomy. We blessed the new month of Av, which will hopefully be reversed from a month of sadness to a month of joy. I wanted to give you a pre-Shabbos talk. A little thought on the Torah portion this week. So we all know that after the prophet Bilam tried to curse the Jews and he couldn't curse the Jews, God didn't allow him. He ends up blessing the Jews. But before he parts ways, he tells the king of Moab, I have a way that you could get these people. I can't curse them, but their God hates adultery and idolatry. And if you allow them to fail at that, God will deliver them into your hands. And of course that's what happens. And later on, before Moses is about to pass away, Moses goes on to a war with Midian on the way to paving to going to the Holy Land. And after the war, the Jews come back with loot. And some of the loot they have pots, they have utensils, all these things that they need. And Elazar comes and he tells them a law in Judaism. This is a basic concept that comes from it. All the gold and the silver, everything that went through fire, you put it back in fire and it will become pure. What does that mean? Let me explain you something. We have the Jewish law of kosher, right? The Torah says you can't have milk and meat together. The Torah says you can't eat an animal that doesn't have split hooves and chews its cut. You can't have a fish that doesn't have fins and scales, or an animal that wasn't slaughtered the right way. But here comes another problem. What happens if by mistake I take a pot and I put a piece of shrimp in it and I cook it? So what happens to the pot now? So the Torah says, you think just the food has to be kosher, but once the pot absorbs the not kosher, the pot itself has to be kosher too, because it absorbed the taste, and then the next time you're going to use it, it's going to emit the taste of the non-kosher. So the basic law is called in Judaism kibolo kach polto. Just as it absorbed, so too will it spit it out. And what does it mean? What was Allah saying? Hey, what happens if you have a pot that you cook non-kosher in? You take that same pot and you do something called hagala. You put it into boiling hot water, and then it will emit all the non-kosher taste. If you had a spit that you had on the grill with non-kosher and you want to make it kosher, you put that spit right back into the grill, and then it will emit all those tastes. But everything has a deeper, there's the concrete and there's the abstract. There's the physical and there's the spiritual. There's what you see on the surface and there's the psychoanalysis, the deeper meaning to everything. Everything in Judaism, in one verse, you can get something so meaningful and so powerful that really gives you the message of something in your day-to-day life. And the same is true with this verse. You see, the rabbis are teaching us a very important thing from these three things. A is that you can't just look at what you see in front of you. You have to look at what's beyond the walls, right? The pot looks fine, but it absorbed something in its walls that's not kosher. Don't say, who cares what it absorbed? I just look what it has. The Torah says no. The second thing is, kibolo kach polto, that just as something could absorb, it could spit out. And the third thing is that the same way it absorbed it, that's the same way it's going to spit it out. These three concepts are three critical concepts in your life and education, in the way we deal with our children. And it's something that I want to leave you with. And I'll start with the first one. Many times you look at parents, you look at educators, and we only want to see what's on the surface. We look at our kid, he's feeling bad, something's hurting him. We think we can fix it just without understanding what's wrong. We teach our kids, someone's in pain. We don't look what's in their depth, what's in their heart, what's in their soul. We say, this is what I see. How do I handle it? Well, guess what? 3,000 years before psychoanalysis, the Torah tells us like this. Never think that if something is hidden behind the walls, that it's not there. You might think this pot, right? It absorbed non-kosher, but now it's not there anymore. Torah says no. Something that has in its inside something non-kosher, the next time you use this, it's going to spit it out and it's going to impact who and how you are. The Torah says you got to be able to look at the deeper feelings of the person. You have to look at their soul. It's not just what they do, it's what their intentions are. What's bothering them? Are they crying for help? The Alter Rebbe, the founder of the Hasidic movement, who wrote the Tanya, he writes about the tzaddik, which is the righteous person, and the Beinoni, which is the intermediary. You would think, what's the difference between the tzaddik and the Beinoni? Very simple. The tzaddik, the righteous man, is so much better, so much greater. And the Beinoni, the intermediate man, makes mistakes. But Alter Rebbe says no. The tzaddik and the Beinoni, the righteous and the intermediate person, they're both never make mistakes. There's only one difference. It's the subconscious. The Beinoni, the intermediate guy, is still struggling with darker, inner struggles and secrets. And the tzaddik has rid himself. Even his thoughts are pure. So the first thing the Torah tells us when it comes to life, when it comes to dealing with a crisis, know that it's not only what you see at the surface, you have to see beyond. You look at America, sometimes things might look perfect, but there's something brewing beyond. There's something deep that's bothering that might not be seen always on the surface. But then a moment comes, like we've seen in the last few months, and it bursts to the forefront. And suddenly our core is shaking. And everything we believe in, our foundations are shaking. But why? Because it was buried there the whole time. It was beneath. It was a struggle that was being dealt with. We just weren't looking past the surface. Says the Torah, the first thing when it comes to kosher is you got to look past the surface, past the action and at the intention too. And you got to know that if there's something that's struggling, you can't just let it fester. You can't just ignore it. You have to kosher it. You got to get rid of that negativity from within. How do you do it? How do you do it? The Torah tells a basic law. There's people that say, you know, I messed up my life. I did bad things. I was corrupt. I lied. I cheated. I hurt people. I wasn't spiritual. It's too late. I give up. I'm a bad person. I'm evil. Says the Torah with the laws of the kosher. The same is true with our soul. Just as you could absorb bad, so too could you spit it out. There's no such thing that I absorb something and I can't spit it out. If you absorb non-kosher by being over the fire, then put that same thing over the fire till it gets white and let the kosher, let the unkosher leave it. You know, someone once came to Rav Nachman of Breslov, one of the famous disciples of the Baal Shem Tov, and said to him, Rebbe, I destroyed my whole life. I ruined my life. And he was sobbing and sobbing, couldn't stop. And finally Rav Nachman looked at him, and Rav Nachman says, if you believe you can destroy, why don't you believe you can fix it? And it became a very famous song. You know, Hebrew words are like this. If you believe that you have the power to destroy, then you need to believe that you have the power to fix. And that's what the Torah says. Yes, there might be hidden unkosher things, but just as it absorbed it, you're able to spit it out. There's no question. You could become better. You could get rid of your demons. You could get rid of your struggles. You could get rid of your challenges. But how do you do it? There's one way you could do it. You go to psychoanalysis, right? You go to your therapist, and you know the story of the guy who wrote a postcard from the Bahamas. This therapist says, "Dear therapist, I'm at the Bahamas. I'm lying on the beach, sipping a pina colada, and I'm having a great time. I wish you were here to tell me why I'm having a great time." So one way is we go to psychoanalysis, we go to a therapist, and we spill out our kishkis, and it takes us forever, and we tell them why we're in pain and why we're hurting. And hopefully, after many, many months and lots of money, we'll come to heal. The second way is just to deal with behavior. Forget about what's inside. I'm going to focus on my behavior, and I'm not going to deal with what's in the subconscious. The Torah says there's a third way. You know what? That same way that it came in the same circumstances that the evil got in, is the way you're going to get it out. No person is born evil. We're all born good. Circumstances happen. We did something wrong. We were abused. We were hurt. We were pained. How do you get it out? When that same circumstance happens again, and you overcome it. For example, you had a sibling who always made you look meek and weak and belittled you and treated you bad. How do you get rid of that insecurity you have? You know what? There'll be another opportunity, and probably many more, when that same situation will happen. And when you're able to have the courage to stand up and be strong in that same situation, then you'll know, I've overcome it. When you're tempted to when you lied and you hurt someone, your spouse, You know how you know truly that you overcame it? When a similar circumstance happens and you have the opportunity to do it again, and you don't do it again, not because you're fearful, not because you're worried someone's going to catch you, but because you're a changed person. Maimonides tells us that the greatest type of teshuvah, of returning to God, of forgiveness for your sins, is not just the resolution that I'm going to do good. It's not just the praying. It's not all the good things you do. It's when that same circumstance will happen again, and at that moment you overcome your desires to do it and to make that mistake, and you rectify it by doing the right thing. Then you know, aha, it worked. The same way it absorbed it, that's the way it's going to bring it out. So you say it might not be fear, but what happens if that circumstance never happens to me again? Tells us the Torah, you're guaranteed the way Hashem makes life. The circumstances that made you fail and that brought you into that challenge will come around again, and you'll have the opportunity to rectify it by doing what's right. And that's the powerful lesson we learn from a simple mitzvah as how you kosher a Jewish utensil, Hagala. The first thing is you got to know, see beyond the surface. Don't just look at what's in the pot, but look at what's in the walls. Look at the feelings, look at the emotions, deal with it, don't ignore it. Don't let the crisis fester. The second thing is, you need to believe in the power of you. If you were able to destroy and make a mistake, you are able to fix it. And the third is that the fixing will come when we confront that same situation and we're able to overcome it. America's going through a crisis now. The world is going through a crisis now. It's something we need to know. If we're able to destroy, if we're able to make mistakes, we will overcome it. We have to see past the surface and see what's bothering people deep inside, and we have to be able to confront our mistakes and make sure that in that same circumstance and in that same opportunity, we wouldn't do that again, and we would overcome our mistakes. Good Shabbos to all of us. May God bless us. We should never have insecurities and never have challenges and never have struggles to deal with, and we should be blessed that this Shabbos should bring in a new month of Menachem Av, where God will comfort all of us and bring us in salvation and joy and health and happiness. Chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek. May we be strong and get even stronger. Good Shabbos.